Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. Today I want to do a video about aging oolong tea. We've done videos before about aging PuErh teas and white teas. I've done lots of tastings and instructional videos. I'll put a load of links in the description below. But I haven't really done videos about aging black teas and aging oolong teas. I haven't done videos about aging green teas because I don't think green teas are suitable for aging. In general, everyone has their own preferences, so if you enjoy the taste of old green tea, then go for it. But for most palates, green tea is not something that you would age. However, black tea and oolong tea is something that you age. It's not something that's talked about as much as PuErh tea and white tea. And I think that's because the aging process for these teas, black teas and oolong teas, is a very different aging style and requires a different sort of set of parameters and is more subtle and for longer period of time. I have in front of me a 2007 aged TGY that we've just got into stock. And so this is 16 years old. I'm speaking to you from the end of 2023. So it's over 16 years old. And that's one of the things with black teas and particularly oolong teas is that the aging process, in order for you to really discern the favorable differences that aging provides for these teas, I think takes much longer than with PuErh teas and with white teas. But what is actually going on in the aging process? Well, for each tea, there's variations of processes that are happening. But broadly speaking, you're going to have a combination of processes. There's going to be a bit of oxidation, which means reacting with the air. There's going to be a bit of fermentation, which is more microbial changes that are happening in the leaf. And there's also going to be some caramelization. And for the most part, with the PuErh teas and the white teas, because they're produced in a particular way that helps to maintain their sort of natural verve, because essentially PuErh tea, raw PuErh tea is a green tea, is a sun-dried green tea, because it goes through that sun-drying process and it's not overly processed and it's from more wilder tea trees that are growing in forests. It's got a lot of microbial activity still potentially active, and also the enzymes in the leaf are still there or thereabouts, sort of kicking around. So the enzymes that contribute to oxidation, the microbes that contribute to the fermentation, they're all much more active in PuErh teas and in white teas. And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I think that with PuErh teas and with white teas, there's a lot more of those processes happening, fermentation and oxidation. Whereas with the black teas and the oolong teas, I feel that whilst those processes are inevitably going to be happening, because it doesn't matter how much processing you do on the leaves, there's always going to be some continuation of the oxidation process. It might not be catalyzed so much by enzymes, but over the years there will still be oxidation. Over the years there is the potential, given the right humidity and temperature levels, of some fermentation. But I feel that with oolong tea and with black teas, we are focused much more on caramelization as the main driver of the change that is favorable during the aging of these tea types. Because what is often talked about as the Maillard reaction, which is this caramelization that happens during usually the cooking process as you cook something at high heat. What a lot of people don't realize is that Maillard reaction can happen at low temperature, i.e. room temperature, if given enough time. 16 years is enough time. And so I find that the main flavor note that I'm looking for in aged oolong teas and aged black teas is an enhanced carameled quality to the tea, as well as some oxidative tastes and some ferment tastes. So we're picking up a little bit of the antique woods, and we're picking up a little bit of the dried fruits, moving into sort of the musty fermented territory, the attics and the cellars. Yes, that's all there, but primary for me is the caramel note. So I'm going to taste this this oolong, this 2007 aged oolong. I don't have a name for it. It's fresh in stock, but not fresh because it's 16 years old. We're going to heat up this small Junie. I love this pot. Little Junie. I don't know, it's like a barrel shape. I haven't given it a name yet, but it will be available online at the time that you see this video. And I'm brewing it in this Junie because it's got a lot of height, which means that it's going to have enough area for these ball rolled oolongs to unfurl. So how should you store your oolong teas when you are considering it for long-term aging? Well, the general advice, and I think it is good advice, is you keep it dry and you keep it airtight. So different from PuErh teas, which you want some replenishing of air a little bit, and you want some humidity in there. You want it to be a little bit more like sort of the 60% humidity range to sort of drive those ferments and the oxidation, because oxidation is exacerbated with some humidity, right? Because the reactions that need to take place require some moisture in order for those reactions to happen. And with white teas, similar to PuErh teas, although I think airtight is better in my opinion, but you're also, wanting some humidity. Whereas with oolong teas, generally you want it, I think, to be dry and airtight. And I find that if you have too much humidity with the oolong teas, there is a possibility of mold developing, and also it just produces an overly, an overly green taste in the aged tea. You want the dry, that's at least my opinion from the teas that I've tasted. And I do taste a fair amount of aged oolongs. We're always looking for aged oolongs because I do love them. But oftentimes you'll hear about people talking about re-roasting their their oolongs. So they roast their oolongs. And that is often a result of them storing the teas. Maybe it's in hot countries like Taiwan, where the humidity is harder to stay on the drier territory, right? It's a humid country. And so the humidity, if it's not stored well, is going to seep into those leaves. And so you need to re-roast those leaves to drive out that moisture. That's one of the reasons I think that re-roasting is done in those countries if it's not stored perfectly dry. But if you have perfectly dry, low humidity storage, then I don't think you need to do the re-roasting. Right, let's have a sniff of this 2007 aged TGY. As I said, we taste a lot of aged teas, but most of them, they lack that development of caramelization, and they tend to be a bit too green still, despite being maybe 20 years old. Here we go, 2007. Deep, rich treacle, dark baked biscuits, vanilla fudge. So lots of that caramelled sugar note. Vanilla, fudge, treacle. This was most certainly a roasted TGY when it went into aging, because it's got that roast going on, but it wasn't, I don't think, a particularly deep dark roast. I still think that a lot of the color that you're seeing on these leaves are related to the aging process rather than the roasting. So I would say that this was probably more in the territory of a medium roasted Nongxiang TGY, which then has just developed over age. Oh, there's so much going on. I'm getting licorice, toffee. I'm getting lots and lots of toffee. So toffees and fudges and the licorice spices, vanilla spices, dark baked biscuits, a little bit of a roast. Yeah, a little bit of a roast in there as well. Maybe you could sort of say roasted coffee, but a light roasted coffee. Let's give these a rinse. Wake them up after 16 years of storage. And this has been stored in Fujian province where it was made. Okay, let's have a smell. Ooh, complexity. Sweet soy sauce. A little bit of tarmac in there as well. Reminds me of amethyst gabba, that lacquered wood, tarmac note. There is some attic in here. So that aged note that I was talking about in terms of those attics and cellars, this is much more attic. So the old lacquered woods, a little bit of that sort of storage smell going on in there. There is a little bright jammy note, but I would associate it with more like a savory tomato jam, cooked down tomato jam. There's also some cooked apple here as well. Vanilla and cooked apple compote. But still those toffee notes are there, licorice notes are there. Again, dark baked biscuits, dark baked like treacle flapjacks. So very caramelled, but also lots of other sort of spicy, spiky things happening as well. Ooh, so much happening. That is, you could spend a long time sniffing through that, but we're going to move to tasting this tea. I don't know, I'm going to have to work out the brewing parameters. This is the first time I've tasted it since it's come in, but yeah, we'll see. The tendency or the thought process is, oh, it's a dark oolong, you know, you can brew into it quite deeply. But when it's an aged tea, I think it's better to be a little bit cautious and brew sort of a bit shorter at the beginning. You can see the color of the liquor, very different from a roasted oolong. Lighter, brighter. I mean, yes, it's got that sort of sugar syrup, maple syrup, caramel quality to it, but I think, okay, it was a shorter-ish infusion and the leaves are still opening, but I think that it has a lightness to it which demonstrates that this is not about the roast, this is about the age. You can see that here as well in the color of the liquor. All right, cheers everybody. 2007 aged Tieguanyin. I'm always excited to taste aged Tieguanyins, but I'm most often let down. Let's see. Yes, this lives up to the expectation. And what is so wonderful about a good aged Tieguanyin or good aged oolong is that you're getting that lovely balance of the deeper, which we'll talk about, but also it maintains that clear, clean, bright quality of the original tea. Let these flavors settle in. Give me a moment. Texture, medium, yet still soft and quite oily, but then moving to a fresh finish in the mouth. Flavor. I mean, the thing that's first entering my mind in terms of, you know, feeling relieved because I bought this tea is length and finish, because those are very important quality markers. And this has a long carameled finish to it and a very lovely, fresh, zingy mouthfeel. And that instantly, you know, okay, this is going to be a good session. We'll talk about it afterwards in terms of the taste, but definitely got a long, juicy finish. Okay, flavors. All those things that we were talking about before. Vanilla fudge, a little bit of apple, a little bit of apple skin. I'm picking up some of that sweet soy, but now it's become a little bit more carby. And what I mean by that is those Japanese sweet soy rice crackers. So it's sweet soy, but with that crackery quality, that savory quality coming through. But there's lots of caramel. I'm picking up those treacles. Picking up, yeah, like toffee apple in there as well. Okay, let's brew up again. I'm brewing at 100 degrees or boiling point, 212 Fahrenheit. But I'm gonna see. It might be that we need to take the temperature down, and I'm gonna continue to brew short because I have a feeling that this is gonna be a tea with lots of infusions that it's good to really taste it in that time-lapse fashion. Cheers, everybody. I would not want to brew it any longer than that. There is a little like rose hip acidity that's hitting the sides of my tongue. And if I brewed it longer than that, I think that that would be too strong. So as it is, it works very well in terms of the balance with the treacle, the sweet soy, the toffees, the licorice, the vanillas, and then that little rise and then fade of that rose hip twang on the backsides of the tongue. Love it, love it. A little bit of the toffee craft paper, so the toffee wrappers. So it's not just the toffee, but that slight sort of papery note, which is often found in a lot of oolong teas. And again, really, really nice and sort of childhood-like. And then those treacle notes are coming through. So that caramel note that I'm talking about with the aging process of black teas and oolong teas is in full effect here. Still picking up a little bit of that roast, but it's very, very light. Again, those roast coffee beans, but it's very, very light. It's in the distance. It's like you're eating toffee and sweet soy crackers near a coffee roaster, but it is in the distance. So it really is not about the roast with these teas. And that's a common sort of confusion. When you see dark roasted oolongs, you think, is that from oxidation? Is that from roast, or is that from age? And it's a hard thing to put your finger on until you taste it. And when you taste it and when you see the color of the liquor, you'll know where it comes from. Smell of the empty Gongda Bay. Ooh, that little rose hip twang. Really lovely. Ooh, vanilla butter toffees. Dark baked biscuits. A touch of mangosteen, a little hit of a tropical fruit in there as well. Yeah. Yeah, mangosteen. But it's just in the distance again. All right, one more brew of this. And I will tell you that this, you will get many, many brews, especially if you brew it with short infusions. So I'm saying start at 10 seconds and just add maybe a few seconds each time because, well, I'll intentionally overbrew it. So I would be pouring ideally around now, but I'm going to intentionally overbrew this tea just to see what happens to it. But I don't recommend that you do this because I think that these teas are best suited with that time-lapse brewing. But let's see how it handles a longer brew. Again, lovely brandy cognac color liquor. The sweetness in my mouth is appley. Yeah, like apples, like toffee apples. A little bit toffee, but then that fresh apple quality as well. A little bit dry, but then moves to juicy. All right, you can see the color of this liquor. I think it is the darkest of the brew so far. I think that this is overbrewed, but let's see. Slightly overbrewed. So when you overbrew these teas, that little rose hip, hibiscus twang, actually I quite like it. I actually think it's a nice brew, but it comes at a little bit stronger, but then it fades. So it's this rising swell and then fade. It's a lovely dynamic in the tea. Now, if it had been stored in an overly humid environment, then that would be overwhelming. It would just be like, oh, this acidity is too strong. As it is right now, it's lovely restrained, and I think it overall works very well. It's like, you know, caramels and apples, caramels and that rose hip just sort of works superbly. But if it had been stored in an overly humid environment, or if you're storing this oolong and you taste it and it's got too much of that acidity, then I would then say, bring down the humidity, make sure you're storing it in dry, and you may want to just give it a very gentle re-roast, which essentially means just sort of putting it at like about 100 degrees in an oven. So not hotter than that, because you don't really want to bring out more, and only for about 10-15 minutes. Clean oven so it doesn't smell, you know, but you know, really, as long as you're storing it in humidity sort of at 50% or lower, then I think you're going to be good. And I think that you want some of that. You want some of that little rising twang, and as long as it dissipates, because it plays against the caramel notes very, very nicely. Last sip from me. You can check out the website if you want like more detailed tasting notes and how many infusions I get through. I've done 3. I really think you're going to be 15 to potentially 20 infusions of this tea. You can see that the leaves have still just woken up. There's a lot more life in these. Look how they've swelled. Yeah, they're very, very brittle. The water is just starting to seep into them. Beautiful. So, there's your quick starter on aging oolong teas. If you want more detailed videos, then please do let me know in the comments section below, and I will try to dive into it a little bit more. Do pick up this 2007 aged TGY if you want to taste a really well-aged TGY, in my opinion. And go seek out some other aged teas. They can get very, very, very expensive, but when you find a good one, it is really worth it. They are expensive not just because you need good tea as a starting material, but also because they take a long time to reach that favorable caramelization that we are looking for. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the supreme stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.